Our next and our last keynote speaker has a master's degree in business administration at Erasmus University, Rotterdam. He is now a futurist, a trend watcher, professional speaker, and the founder of Freshmark. In his lecture, he will share his vision on the profile of future American presidential candidates, and he will answer the question whether the Honorable Mr. Kanye West will ever be a president of the United States of America, what's in store for us, and how crazy can it get. Mark Schipper.
Hi there, very much welcome and great to be here for Erasmus University doing this presentation. I will take you along to indeed the profile of the future American president. You know, what would it be for our future? As stated, I'm doing trend research. That's my professional job. And the most important thing I want to share with you is the sentence on the left-hand side. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And it's actually a sentence of Abraham Lincoln. And for me, it's very important how you want to approach future. Is it something you just wait and see to happen and make the best of it? Or do you acknowledge you can make future yourself? For those companies and persons, I'm really a person to help them with. I have a variety of clients I'm working for. I tend to translate society trends for them in more appropriate new business, either for Red Bull on petrol stations, or for Funda, how Dutch people find their house in the future, or for a city in Amsterdam to create a real future room on how the city will look like and let people experience that and make something of it. But yeah, profile of the future American president. How would it look like? Well, let me first take you to a disclaimer about the future. I have to state, by doing now for 15 years research in future, the future paints bright and dark colors alike. It's not that the future is a one-way direction. Just look at today. We'll have a society which has different colors depending your context or perception on it. So that also is for the new future president. That's why I choose two profiles for you to present. But before I come to the profiles, I always tend to look first at the past, the US presidential system. The first president of the United States, George Washington on the left, 1789. Already from the beginning, it showed that this system in the United States was a very executive power system. All the power controlled by the president. And also from the beginning, there were two parties actually getting this power, or at least voted for that. And when a new president came into office, a lot of senior officials came in office as well. So what happens if you think about the old ABBA song, the winner takes it all? That's the big thing in the United States, two parties. And when you lose really everything. So you really want to do everything that takes it to win. And all along all those presidents we have had so far, we had, for instance, Ronald Reagan, for the ones who recognize him, an actor from Hollywood who became president of the United States. So from him, it is not that big step to Trump, where we are now currently, Mr. Alternative, Mr. Outsider. Trump could really got into the office because a lot of American people are sort of not pleased with the present political situation. They long for something different, something better for them, and they don't care. And then for them, it's very important to choose someone that's very confident about what he wants to do and convincing as well. And then, yes, the future profile, job profile of the American president. How could you define it? I would like to take you along to two trends of the 6 trends I'm working on. This feminization and polarizing life. I think those two trends are really defining the future profile of the American president. First, about polarizing life. It's a trend that's going on for quite some years, even long before Trump came into the office. This London subway sign really says it all. It's mind the gap, because that's what's really happening in society. There's more that takes us apart, that binds us in society. Think of fake news. It's something that has been there for ages, but nowadays fake news is very strong, and we call it even alternative facts. Polarizing life is occurring at many aspects in life. Of course, it's Trump. It's also a Brexit. It's a broadening gap between the young and the old, especially the baby boomers, who have a very good lives at the moment, and the young people ask themselves, will we have such a life as well as a pension conflict? Then there's a growing gap between high and low educated people. This being high educated is nowadays a ticket to the tropics to really make it. And there's a life expectancy gap, which is growing between high and low educated people. And finally, also between the rural areas and the metropolitan areas, the gap is growing and how people think and vote. And let me take you a little bit to the American middle class. This is a typical picture of the end of 60s, beginning of 70s, when the middle class was at its heyday, and there was some 61% of society was middle class. And nowadays it's shrunk to 49%. And middle class, it's very important to notice, is the class that likes to vote for moderation, for compromise, because they're having a great time and they want to continue it. But because this middle class is shrinking and lower class is bigger, they have not so much to lose. They want a different president. They want more a president who breaks the present condition and makes it better for them. You also see a polarizing life occurring in the broadcasting area. CNN, typically a broadcasting company for the Democratic voters, and Fox for the Republican voters. The two shall not meet. That's really the case right now. And of course, if you've been looking at the streets on television in the United States last months, we have seen quite some protests on the street. And this is what is really going on right now. We have a president in the United States that's actually fueling extreme parties to meet each other on the street. Either it be Black Lives Matter, longing for more solidarity in society, or Proud Boys, more for the identity part. Those two are really on the extreme side. They have their momentum and they are very important in the current situation. And then a small step, there's now a businessman in the White House. And that means that politics came also into business. Large companies in the United States, but also in the Western world, can no longer sit aside and just sell their shoes like Nike does to everyone. They have to make a stand in some issues like Black Lives Matter. They did so with this guy, Colin Kaepernick, American football player, who refused to stand up during the national anthem was played in the United States. And he got a sponsorship for Nike, and because Nike wants to stand out on this issue. So all those polarizing things, where does it take us? The first profile I want to share with you is this one, is thriving on chaos. This is really what's going on. Polarizing life creates more chaos in society, and the person who can thrive on that really can win. That brings me to the first profile. I really believe there is a possibility of getting a dynasty. And we've had some in the past in the United States, of course, the Bushes and the Kennedys. But this is another kind of dynasty. Look at the background. Yeah? It's a family of Trump, but in a Roman Empire style. It says something about who they are, where they're from. They're above in the clouds. They make their own rules, don't have to obey the rules, and are untouchable. Then continue to the second profile. It's fueled by the trend feminization. This trend is not only about salary differences between men and women or the Me Too affairs. It's really about the female values that are getting more important in our society. And I'm talking about the quality, network, intuition, and long term, as opposed to the male values. And it's also thinking of your school time with economics, the gross domestic product. It's not only hard figures, but sometimes we also need other measurements to really assess whether a country is rich. Does it have good access to education or healthcare, for instance? And this feminization, just to take you along, because I can make a more broader presentation about this, is in many fields of society, for instance, in architecture. Thanks to 3D printing, buildings don't have to be anymore very straight on. They can have any form you like and very organic in form. Feminization is also about getting customers first, but also the employees who are most close to the customers also first. Give them more responsibility, and the CEO is more a facilitator in this. And feminization, not to forget, is a trend also that's fueling the minority matters, the inclusiveness in society, and that everyone matters as fact. We have a gender mix-up going between man and woman. Of course, we are not the same species, but we tend to overlap more and more in society. And there was a campaign last year from Gillette, the best a man can get. You see that how men are actually changing as well. In this campaign, Gillette promotes men that also take care of inclusive thoughts and a green planet as well. So that brings me to the second profile, and I want to bring it in this sentence of the quality of life. Actually, this is something about not the hard figure about how much you own or how much you consume. It's more the quality of what you own, and the quality of what you consume is getting more important. And to give this profile a picture, I use this Mrs. Apfel, a businesswoman and a fashion icon. Could have also used Michelle Obama or Oprah Winfrey, of course. But I want to state with this profile that the future power woman will be a very colorful woman. Because don't forget that the 21st century is a century of China, but as well a century of women. And this will be a woman that really takes care of this quality of life and tries to be hard on polarization issues. All right. Thank you so much for the attention. I'm very curious whether there are any questions.
Hi, Mark. Thanks. Yes, indeed, we have received a number of questions. But first, if I may sort of connect your talk to the talk of the other keynote speakers, you all touched upon themes as diversity, inclusion, and feminization. Still, we have two guys on the ticket that are in their 70s and both white. What should we think of this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Of course, we still have Kamala Harris, a woman as vice president, and
But in a time where diversity and inclusion are so important, why is the most important job in the world about to be filled by a guy, white guy, and a really old white guy?
Well, it's something that puzzles me as well, but at the same time, this is what is reality at the moment. But I still believe that perhaps not at this presidential election, but at the next one to come, more women will be more visible on higher positions and getting for the ticket. I really believe that this will be something for the coming, 10 years to be more important. So this might be the last election where we have two old white men, very aged, and I really believe that there will be more younger women coming up.
It might be sort of a backlash of a culture that is sort of losing it. The question from the audience: will we have a future president of the US after 4 more years of Trump, or will the US break up before that?
In a sense of breakup, not exist anymore, or
I think so. The civil war or total.
Yeah, I presented this first profile as a sort of dynasty, and it can, in a way, like Trump already stated, that he doesn't like to lose. He doesn't like to hand in power. He's a guy that is addicted to power. So it can either be a sort of dynasty that comes into power on a soft way but will never leave the stage, or it could be a sort of a war. Indeed, if people are really opposed to it, and I think a lot of people are opposed to Trump, so it's really how it works out, how well they can perform on stage and control everything what's important to getting in power. But it's not a family that hands in power very easily.
Okay. Another question. What actors in American society do you think got the most benefits from the last 4 years of the Trump presidency?
What actors?
Yeah. So what layers in society which were the business people who profited most, the rich people that profited most?
I think so. It's good that you elaborate on that. I really think that on that account, while Trump is actually promising the lower class to make their lives better, to make America great again, I think he's doing far more for the rich and wealthy and the business owners. If you look at the tax cuts he has been doing the last years. So, to be honest, if you really look at the figures, I think he's doing more for people who already have quite some good money on the bank. Yeah.
Yeah. And this question is a sort of in relation, I think, to your work as a trend watcher. In terms of research and data on this topic, do you think that you could predict what individual or individuals are most likely to make it to the presidential tickets in the future?
Well, that's no, really an individual person, that's very difficult. But like a sort of wave of what's getting more important, these two profiles are really extremes from each other. It's like the one is really like, do we embrace a dynasty because it's all chaos and we need some strong men? First, the other one, the quality of life, it's far more being equal and exclusive. Is another way of doing politics. So I can indeed give a prediction on the wave, on the trend, but the specific person, for me, to be honest, Trump was a surprise as well. I've had this polarization trend before he came into office, but even I was amazed by his coming onto stage. So that proves
Yeah.
that life is always very special in the end.
Yeah. Last question. It's often said that a lot of trends in the United States sooner or later will end up in Europe and in the Netherlands. Would you say that your analysis can be transferred to the Dutch situation?
Yes, certainly. And you're right that United States is also Britain is ahead of us in certain trends, but not all trends. There are trends that are, for instance, robotization. You see South Korea and Japan moving faster. On feminization, it's the Scandinavian countries are faster. But those trends that I'm working with they really apply to the Netherlands as well. Certainly, yeah, we have
Yeah.
polarization going on as well, but we have another political system that doesn't allow two parties uh, to rule. That is our safeguard, actually, that we have this multiple parties.
Yeah. Thanks a lot for being with us. Mark Schipper.